Before we begin today's case, I want to remind you that this content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information presented is based on publicly available court records, news reports, and trial proceedings. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The views and opinions expressed in this video are my own and do not constitute legal advice. I am not responsible for any actions taken based on this content. Viewer discretion is advised as this case involves sensitive subject matter including domestic violence and death. A quiet morning in Davison, Michigan. A mother preparing breakfast for her family. And one bowl of cereal that would shatter everything they thought they knew about the man they trusted most. This is the story of Christina Harris, a devoted mother, loving daughter, and wife who never could have imagined that her morning routine would become her final meal. It's a case that left investigators stunned and a community asking how someone could betray the most sacred bond of all, the trust of family. Welcome to the Mystery Docket, where we bring you real stories of crime, mystery, and the search for justice. Today's case is particularly difficult because it involves the ultimate betrayal, when the person meant to protect becomes the predator. Christina Ann Thompson Harris was born on March 15, 1978, in Michigan. Those who knew Christina described her as a vibrant, caring woman with an infectious laugh and a heart full of love for her family. She was the kind of person who lit up a room when she walked in, always quick with a joke, always ready to lend a helping hand. Christina was a devoted mother to her two young daughters, and being a mom was truly her greatest joy. She loved planning family activities, creating special memories, and making sure her girls felt loved and supported every single day. Her family remembers her as someone who put everyone else's needs before her own, a trait that made her both beloved and, tragically, vulnerable. At 36 years old, Christina had recently given birth to her second daughter and was still breastfeeding when this story takes place in September 2014. She was navigating the beautiful chaos of life with two little ones, trying to balance motherhood with her relationship with her husband, Jason Harris. To understand what happened to Christina, we need to go back to her marriage and the man she thought she could trust with her life. Quite literally. Christina's life centered around her family, but the most important relationship, and ultimately the most dangerous, was with her husband, Jason Harris. The couple had been married for several years and seemed, from the outside, like a typical suburban family. Jason worked various jobs and appeared to be a devoted father and husband. But as investigators would later discover, there were cracks in this facade that Christina's family had begun to notice. Christina's parents and siblings had started to see changes in her over the months leading up to September 2014. She seemed more stressed, more withdrawn at times. There were moments when she appeared unusually tired or unwell, which she attributed to the demands of caring for a newborn and adjusting to life with two young children. What Christina didn't know was that Jason had been living a double life. He had debts, secrets, and a growing resentment toward the responsibilities of marriage and fatherhood. According to prosecutors, Jason had even previously tried to arrange Christina's death through other means, attempts that had failed but showed his escalating desperation to escape his family obligations. Jason had been married before and was paying child support to his ex-wife. The financial strain of supporting multiple families was weighing on him, and rather than face these challenges honestly, he began planning the unthinkable. The most chilling aspect of this case is how ordinary everything appeared on the surface. Neighbors saw a normal family. Friends saw a couple navigating the usual struggles of parenthood. No one could have predicted that breakfast on September 28, 2014, would be Christina's last. In the weeks and months before Christina's death, there were warning signs that would only make sense in hindsight. Christina had been experiencing unusual episodes of illness and fatigue that she couldn't quite explain. She attributed these to the stress of new motherhood, but her family wondered if something else was wrong. Jason's behavior had also become increasingly erratic. He seemed distant, preoccupied, and there were financial pressures mounting. According to testimony, he had even researched methods of murder and had made previous attempts to harm Christina that she survived without realizing they were intentional. The most disturbing red flag came from Jason's own actions in the days leading up to September 28th. He had been asking unusual questions about Christina's routines, particularly her breakfast habits. He seemed especially interested in when she ate alone and what she preferred to eat in the mornings. Christina's mother later recalled that her daughter had mentioned feeling off several times in the weeks before her death. She complained of dizziness, nausea, and extreme fatigue that seemed disproportionate to typical new mother exhaustion. What makes this case so heartbreaking is that Christina trusted Jason completely. She never suspected that the man sleeping beside her, the father of her children, was slowly poisoning her system and planning her death. The very person she should have been safest with was plotting against her. September 28, 2014, started like any other Sunday morning in the Harris household. Christina woke up to care for her baby daughter, who was still breastfeeding. Jason appeared helpful and attentive, offering to make breakfast for the family. What Christina didn't know was that Jason had made a deadly addition to her morning meal. According to trial testimony and evidence presented by prosecutors, Jason prepared a bowl of cereal for Christina and laced it with a lethal dose of heroin. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a calculated, premeditated act of murder disguised as a loving gesture. Christina sat down to eat her breakfast, trusting completely in her husband's care. Within minutes, she began experiencing the effects of the heroin poisoning. She had difficulty holding her spoon, her movements became unsteady, and she began to feel extremely unwell. Jason, playing the role of the concerned husband, helped Christina to bed, telling her she should rest while he took care of the children. This was all part of his calculated plan. He needed Christina to be alone and incapacitated so that when she died, it would appear to be a tragic accident. As Christina lay in bed, the heroin continued to suppress her respiratory system. Jason went about his morning routine, caring for their daughters while his wife died slowly in the next room. When Jason discovered Christina unresponsive later that morning, he called 911. To paramedics and responding officers, it appeared that a young mother had tragically suffered a fatal overdose. Jason played the part of the devastated husband perfectly, crying, asking questions, appearing shocked and grief-stricken. Christina was pronounced dead, leaving behind two young daughters who would never remember their mother, and a family destroyed by unimaginable betrayal. Initially, investigators treated Christina's death exactly as it appeared, a tragic accidental overdose. The medical examiner classified her death as accidental, noting the presence of heroin in her system. For Jason Harris, it seemed his plan had worked perfectly. But Christina's family refused to accept this conclusion. They knew Christina wasn't a drug user. They knew she was devoted to her children and would never risk their safety by using illegal substances, especially while breastfeeding. Her parents, siblings, and closest friends began advocating for a deeper investigation. The breakthrough came years later, in a way that Jason could never have anticipated. Investigators decided to test a sample of Christina's breast milk that had been preserved from the time of her death. This test would prove to be the key piece of evidence that unraveled Jason's carefully constructed lie. The forensic analysis showed no traces of illegal narcotics in Christina's breast milk, which was scientifically impossible if she had been a habitual drug user. Heroin and its metabolites would have been present in her milk if she had been using the drug regularly. This evidence proved that Christina was not an addict and that the heroin in her system on September 28th was not self-administered. With this new evidence, investigators began looking at the case from an entirely different angle. They examined Jason's financial situation, his previous marriage, and his behavior in the days and weeks leading up to Christina's death. What they discovered was chilling. Jason had significant financial motivations for wanting Christina gone. He was struggling with child support payments to his ex-wife and the expenses of his current family. In his twisted thinking, Christina's death would solve his financial problems and free him from his responsibilities. Even more disturbing, investigators uncovered evidence that Jason had previously attempted to arrange Christina's murder through other means. He had solicited others to kill his wife, attempts that had failed but demonstrated his persistent intent to end her life. Digital evidence revealed Jason's internet searches in the weeks before Christina's death. He had researched methods of murder, ways to make deaths appear accidental, and specifically looked into drug-related deaths and overdoses. The investigation also revealed Jason's behavior immediately after Christina's death was suspicious. Rather than grieving appropriately or focusing on his daughter's well-being, he seemed focused on financial matters and moving on with his life unusually quickly. As the evidence mounted, it became clear that Christina Harris hadn't died from an accidental overdose. She had been murdered by the man she trusted most in the world, in the most insidious way possible, through something as innocent as breakfast cereal. In 2017, nearly 3 years after Christina's death, Jason Harris was finally arrested and charged with first-degree premeditated murder, solicitation of murder, and delivery of a controlled substance causing death. The trial, which took place in 2021, riveted the community and finally gave Christina's family the opportunity to seek justice for their beloved daughter and sister. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of Jason's methodical plan to murder his wife. They presented the breast milk evidence, showing that Christina wasn't a drug user. They revealed Jason's financial motivations, his previous attempts to have Christina killed, and his internet search history that proved premeditation. The prosecution also presented testimony about Jason's behavior on the morning of September 28, 2014. Witnesses described how he had prepared Christina's breakfast, how he had helped her to bed when she became ill, and how he had seemed unusually calm for someone whose wife was dying. The defense attempted to argue that Christina's death was indeed an accidental overdose, that she had somehow obtained and used heroin without anyone's knowledge. But the scientific evidence was overwhelming. The preserved breast milk sample made it impossible to maintain that Christina was a drug user. One of the most powerful moments of the trial came when Christina's family members testified about the woman they had lost. Her mother spoke about Christina's devotion to her daughters, her plans for the future, and her excitement about being a mother of 2. Her sister described Christina's personality, her dreams, and the impact her death had on the entire family. The jury deliberated for just a few hours before returning with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. Judge David J. Newblatt sentenced Jason Harris to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, the judge didn't hold back in his condemnation of Jason's actions, calling him a selfish, murdering, lying monster, and noting that the jury saw through your lies. Jason Harris attempted to appeal his conviction, claiming ineffective assistance of counsel, but in February 2024, the Michigan Court of Appeals upheld his conviction and life sentence. The murder of Christina Harris represents one of the most fundamental betrayals imaginable, when the person sworn to love and protect becomes the source of danger and death. This case serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence doesn't always look like what we might expect. Sometimes it's hidden, methodical, and disguised as care. Christina's story highlights the importance of listening to family members who suspect something is wrong. Her parents and siblings never stopped advocating for the truth, even when the initial investigation seemed to provide easy answers. Their persistence was crucial in ensuring that justice was eventually served. This case also demonstrates the vital importance of forensic science in solving crimes. Without the preserved breast milk sample and the advanced testing that proved Christina wasn't a drug user, Jason might have gotten away with murder. The scientific evidence was so compelling that it completely dismantled his defense. For families dealing with similar situations, Christina's story shows that domestic violence can take many forms. Financial stress, control issues, and resentment can escalate to deadly violence, often against partners who never see the danger coming. Christina's daughters, who lost their mother when they were just babies, are now growing up without her. They'll never know their mother's laugh, never receive her guidance, never feel her unconditional love. That loss is immeasurable and permanent. But Christina's legacy lives on through her family's fight for justice and through the awareness her case brings to others. Her story serves as a warning about the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors and the importance of trusting our instincts when something doesn't feel right. If you or someone you know feels unsafe in a relationship, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotlines. Financial stress, control, and isolation are warning signs that should never be ignored. Christina trusted the wrong person with her life, but there are people you can trust with your safety. Thank you for joining us on the Mystery Docket as we remembered Christina Harris and examined the betrayal that ended her life far too soon. This case reminds us that evil can hide behind the most ordinary facades, and that justice sometimes takes years to achieve. Christina deserved so much more than the life she was given, and so much more than the death she suffered. She deserved to watch her daughters grow up, to see them graduate and get married and have families of their own. She deserved to grow old with someone who truly loved and cherished her. If this case affected you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel to help us continue sharing stories that deserve to be told. Share your thoughts about Christina's case in the comments below, but please remember to be respectful of her memory and her family's ongoing grief. What warning signs do you think people should watch for in relationships? How can we better support family members who are advocating for victims? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember that there are always people willing to help if you need it.